Hey there, welcome to the channel. I'm Ben, and I've been in search of the perfect go anywhere, do anything dual sport motorcycle for, well, over a decade now. And today we're going to talk about whether or not my Honda XR650L adventure build is the perfect mix of on and off-road comfort and performance. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around and we'll get into it. Now, as great as my very first dual sport motorcycle, the DRZ400, was off-road, it left a lot to be desired on the 2+ hour round trip that I needed to take if I want to do any off-road riding. Both my KLRs and especially the Tenere 700 made that 2-hour trek much more enjoyable, but even after I improved my off-road skills enough that I could ride them on just about any trail that I found, I started to realize that just because I could take a 460-pound bike on single-track trails, it didn't necessarily mean that I should. I figured there had to be another solution, something that could comfortably do highway speeds and be fun on the twisty back roads that led to my trails, but still be light enough that a slip up during a solo adventure wouldn't leave me pinned underneath the bike that weighed 3 times what I did. So at the beginning of last season, I decided to pick up the KLR's polar opposite in the big bore dual sport class, the Honda XR650L. With a ground clearance that's nearly 5 inches taller than that of the KLR, a seat height that's 3 inches taller, and a wet weight that's well over 100 pounds less than a Gen 3, but still has about the same horsepower and torque, it felt like an entirely different type of machine. However, as I'd expected during the first adventure test I did last March, I quickly realized that some of those major changes weren't exactly ideal for my specific needs, so I installed new handlebars, risers, grip and seat heaters, as well as a taller fairing to make it more comfortable on the road. I also installed the closest thing to a true 50/50 tire that I can personally stand. I lowered it about an inch in the rear and 3/4 of an inch in the front to make it handle better, and because the 5-speed transmission seemed to have a wider range than the KLR, I decided to install a smaller 14-tooth sprocket up front, which brought the 40 horses down a little bit lower and also made the bike crawl through the slower moving trails a little bit better. The build is far from complete, but since we had a bit of a break in the spring weather here in Wisconsin, I decided to fire the XR up and retrace that exact same adventure test route to see if I've finally bought and built the perfect adventure dual sport motorcycle that I've always been looking for. In the video today, we're going to talk a bit about how the bike compares to my KLRs, how it compares to the DR that I'm riding now, and just sort of my general thoughts on the bike in its stock form, how my modifications have changed it. And if you guys are interested in hearing more about this or seeing a longer version of this adventure, these clips are taken from the hour-ish video that I put out last week. But for now, let's hop on the XR ADV build and see how it does. So of course, the first thing that we've got to do is fill up. So we'll get the trip meter reset, and we'll come back at the end of the day and check fuel mileage and, well, hopefully range. Hopefully I can make it back here. And we'll get you some numbers for that. Put some premium in here, not because the bike needs it, but because I believe it won't have any ethanol in it. Sure is nice being able to touch the ground a little bit easier. It's not the main point of why I lowered it, but boy, it makes this thing so much nicer to ride around town when you're hopping on and off. Let's go have ourselves an adventure. So this will be about the fastest that we're gonna go on this adventure, but I was on the freeway a little bit on the way to the gas station, and I've got to say this bike with the 14 tooth on it in comparison to the DR with the 14 tooth, this definitely feels a little bit more vibey, mostly in the foot pegs, and I suppose a little bit in the handlebars and the seat too. Still definitely comfortable and fine. I think at that speed, you just obviously have to keep in mind with either of these bikes that it is a big bore dual sport that was designed when I was in diapers, before I was even born actually, I suppose. So it's not going to be a smooth parallel twin for certain, but to be honest, that really doesn't bother me that much because I personally don't like freeway travel. I mean, 55, 60 miles an hour, which is exactly what I'm doing now, is, I think, perfect speed really for any motorcycle. I mean, maybe something with a huge amount of wind protection and with some more weight. I mean, maybe I would enjoy freeway travel, but I prefer just to stick to the back roads. Really, this thing has some pretty decent wind protection, of course, since I've added the Hemisphere off-road rally fairing, but even just stock with these big scoops that are really meant to scoop air into the engine. I gotta say, on this windy day at 60 indicated, on the dash. This is a pretty comfy bike to ride. I would definitely like a little bit more wind protection, just because the wind now, and the buffeted wind, I suppose I should say, kind of hits me right in the eyes, I guess. So if I open this, it would be incredibly noisy and almost undoable, but I've actually got something coming that should fix that. As far as sort of passing power at this speed, if we drop down to 55 and I hit it again, I mean, it feels like I'm lugging this thing, honestly. If I was to have to pass a car at this speed, I would definitely want to downshift. Yeah, definitely. So it's certainly not feeling wound out here. Yeah, on the uphill, I'm feeling like I'm lugging it too. Definitely still more than enough power when you downshift. While it does vibrate a bit, and obviously you get some input through all the contact points, I don't know, it just kind of feels like a big thumper to me. It doesn't really bother me. Would I want to ride it for 200 miles a day on the pavement? No, probably not. But that's not why I bought this bike. I bought it to do exactly what we're doing today. So I was kind of getting sick of road riding on sport bikes and bought the DRZ400, and I was really pretty disappointed with that bike when it came to stuff like this. Because at 55, that bike just seemed like it was out of gas, more or less, where both, really the KLR, but especially the XR650 and the DR650, they're certainly not my 2008 CBR 600RR, but they definitely have, I would say, just enough get up and go to make you smile around the corners. I feel like I really have noticed on those first couple corners there, really trying to rail it, that this thing pretty much is more or less pinned at higher speeds around those corners. And if you guys have seen the videos before, you know that I say this bike is a lot more fun at lower speeds, because it just really, I think due to the torque curve, just hits, I mean, right away. You just get all the power immediately, which, I mean, can be a lot of fun, but the DR is a little bit better, I think, once you're at 45 or above. Not that I'm an expert, but I've also been able to do 0 to 60s faster on that bike, on the DR, than this one. So this thing definitely does leave, I think, a little bit to be desired on the top end in comparison to the DR, but still, like I said, better than the DRZ400 for sure. And even with this thing lowered, it's still, well, towers above the DR650 and the KLR, but being that it is lowered, a little bit lower than it used to be, it's certainly a lot more fun in the corners because of it, which really makes total sense, because with that lower center of gravity, it just makes the bike feel a lot more planted and a lot less work to sort of get it to come back into line after you've leaned it over. So I would say lowering it definitely makes it a much better road bike. Especially on a windy day like this, it's definitely nice to be a little bit lower to the ground. You don't get pushed around as much. So I'm really feeling pretty darn comfortable on this bike. If you guys remember last year, and just in the videos where I've talked about it a bit recently, the foot pegs on here are kind of high, so I end up kind of with my legs scrunched up a little bit more than I would like. And I've actually got a line on a set of foot pegs that would drop my stance here about an inch. So that, I think, will be kind of interesting to test. But one thing that I'm noticing, and sort of forgot about until I've just started to notice how comfy I feel like I am, or at least my upper body, is that these Rox 2-inch risers that I've got pushed basically all the way forward, I have not, I guess, put a lot of road miles on since I put them on. I put them on this winter and then goofed around a bit, but hadn't been on a ride like this since I had a different set on here, and I really do like that they're so much further forward. It just feels like I have so much more room in the seating area, which is definitely good. Even though I've got my MSR cold weather gloves on, I think I'm going to put that on. I guess we might as well do it on high. See what that gets us. I haven't felt the need to put the seat heater on yet. Third gear. This thing's just so much better now that it's lowered. So much better of a road bike anyway. Oh yeah, I'm glad to have those grip heaters under there. And if you guys missed that video with grip heaters, meaning an element basically that you wrap around the bar or the throttle tube underneath the grip. This side I wrapped 5 layers of electrical tape around the bar before I stuck the heating element on. Otherwise, your whole bar ends up being a heat sink and is always constantly cooling that down or sucking that heat away from your hand, where the throttle side is insulated by the plastic throttle tube. Look at all them birds. I gotta watch my lines.
but that definitely seems to be helping. I think the throttle tube maybe feels a little bit warmer, but just a hair. It's definitely worth wrapping that electrical tape around there. My butt is almost starting to feel close to uncomfortable, and it's not like the seat was ever absolutely perfect, but since I put the, oops, I forgot how to use this thing. Since I put the, oh, come back. Oh, did I really screw up that bad? I guess I did. Whoops. I went way north of where I was supposed to be. I think I did this last time too, actually. Oh well. And it'll closer match that trip. But when I put the seat heater inside of here, which basically just goes directly under the cover on top of the foam, it was my first time recovering a seat, or covering a seat, stapling a seat cover back on. And I might have done it a little bit too tight, but just even the fact that we have an extra layer of material in there, it's going to change the seat and therefore probably the level of comfort. I wasn't sure if it'd be better or worse. It's not really bad. I mean, I've been on the bike for probably about an hour now, and it's not anything that I would say I'm too disappointed in so far yet anyway. Woo! Wind's still definitely catching me. That is one thing that I think I really do also like about having wind protection on a bike like this, even if it is just a little bit. You don't get beat up by the wind so much that it's kind of affecting the ride of the bike, which I think, I mean, just not having the wind on you constantly sort of brings the fatigue load down a little bit, but just the fact that you don't also have to kind of constantly fight to keep the bike in line then. And I mean, it's not like it's a huge difference, it's a small difference, but I think something that, I don't know, I guess I like to think that I can notice anyway. Grip beaters are too warm though. I'm gonna flip those down to low. I think maybe without the Hemisphere off-road rally fairing, I would probably be a bit cooler, because I mean I can tell my whole chest area and even really my neck, I mean, doesn't seem to be getting any of that wind, or at least not enough of it to really cool me down. Let's see how this thing does on the off-road trails, or the gravel roads I suppose, not really off-road. Off the pavement. Yeah, I can tell already. I like it so much better lowered. Whoa. If you're a professional motocross rider, then you might prefer a nice tall stock XR, but that's not me. I'm a dual sport guy and really kind of a dual sport adventure rider, I suppose, that often finds himself in situations like this. At least I'm not on the Tenere 700 like I was when I was here with my dad on while he was on his XE800. I sure enjoyed getting out and doing those rides, but I'm definitely much happier on this bike. It just seems like it's built way more for this type of thing, especially now with these mods. If you're really doing some crazy log hopping or something, or maybe on a motocross track, things would be different, but in 99% of the riding that I do, having this a little bit lower is just much more confidence inspiring, again, just because that center of gravity is lower. So it makes the tires job hanging on to whatever you're riding over so much easier, because you're not cantilevering so much weight off of the side of them, and that means they just don't need as much traction and will just make you feel a lot more confident and hang on much better. And it just makes the bike just feel like it's a little bit more meant for this type of thing. And it's still not as close to the DR, of course, like I already mentioned, just because it is 2 inches higher. And the DR, I think, just in general kind of keeps the majority of its weight, even the tank and the fuel in it, a little bit lower. However, the suspension on this thing, especially in the sort of chattery bumps, but really over any sort of bumpy terrain, really anything other than completely smooth terrain, the suspension on this out of the box is so much better. While suspension, of course, needs to soak up bumps and help you when you're going over jumps or really rough stuff, and just makes the ride more comfortable. The most important job the suspension has, that I think a lot of people don't really think about, is keeping the tires connected to the ground, because as soon as they're not connected to the ground and you lose traction, you may lose the bike. I had situations on the DR where I've literally been talking about how the low center of gravity makes it feel stuck to the road, and then gone over a bump and almost lost it. Oh, I love this trail. And this bike too, man. This is a good bike. Honestly, a little bit surprised that I was kind of disappointed with it, with the 14 tooth at the higher speeds. But I think, like I said, that's just because I've been riding the DR. And the DR is a darn good bike and a hard machine to beat. But this thing is just, woo, just a beast, especially on the trails like this. And definitely, I think, maneuvers a lot better, partially because of the suspension, but also just the geometry in general. Just really always liked this bike and really kind of always liked Hondas. They know how to make a machine. It's the end of the trail. Yeah, and if you've got a giant inseam height, I mean, I could see where this would be a fun bike in its stock configuration, but with a 31-inch inseam and being 5'10", I just have so much more confidence on this thing, just because I know I can easily get my foot to the ground. And whoa, you shouldn't be riding around like you're gonna have to put your foot down or waiting to put your foot down. But there are certain circumstances, like turning around or when one of the tires slips and you don't expect it to, that being a little bit closer to the ground can make a pretty big difference, and can be the difference between pulling a muscle, tipping the bike over on yourself, on your leg, or just simply putting your foot down. So all depends what you're looking to do, and I'm not looking to impress anybody or what the heck. Oh, that must be a regular bicycle trail. Whew. I'm just looking to get out here and enjoy the trails, enjoy the ride, and enjoy the scenery. Whoa! And stay upright. My wife always tells me to be good when I go out on these rides. I think I am for the most part. Oh boy, this was not smart though. Oop, just more snow and maybe a giant puddle. Something moving in that puddle? I want to get stuck in the ice. That wouldn't be good. Ooh, this is really rutted out. Oh boy, and very wet. And slippery. But we made it. Waypoints might not be the best, but they do pretty good for what they are. I think this is the end of the line, right? Oh, maybe not. Nice hill climb. Which I believe goes absolutely nowhere, if I recall. Yep. This is it. Good test for the fact that this is still not exactly all that easy for me to get to the ground with. There. 16-point turn and we're on our way. Oh, we gotta go down this hill though. Make sure nobody's coming. I guess we could just go off into the snow if they are. Don't see anyone. Don't touch the brakes. We're clear-ish. Yeah, I'm sweating now. Yeah, this is just a perfect bike for this though, man. It climbing up those hills and doing all this, kind of hairy stuff. While I'm certainly not recommending it, especially when it's snowy and when you're by yourself. But I mean, having this 346-pound bike, which of course has a little bit more weight on it now with the mods, just is vastly better than the 460 pounds that my last Gen 3 KLR was, and even the 430-pound Gen 2. I mean, you could do the exact same thing that I'm doing today, but I wouldn't do it unless I had somebody else here with me. And again, not that what I'm doing today is necessarily smart or something I'd recommend, but I mean, I'm obviously feeling more than confident enough to do it on this bike, and I mean, that just cannot be said for the KLRs, either of them really. I mean, yes, I know you could do it, and if you're bigger than me, more built and taller inseam height, I mean, I'm sure you could do it, but I guarantee you it's going to be way more fun on this bike. There's no getting around that. It's definitely a good machine, and definitely I think what I was hoping for when I bought the DRZ, and also I think what I was hoping for when I bought the KLR. Oh, glad I saw you. Get out of here. So I am starting to feel like I'm sliding down towards the front of the seat slightly, and I suppose I could just kind of sit a little bit closer towards the front, but then, I don't know, I guess I just don't really feel it like I'm in quite the right spot for my back, and I suppose I can just bend my arms a little bit, and it works. I just prefer to be a little bit further back. At least on this bike anyways, makes it feel a little bit more stable, I think. And I mean, at this speed, no, it's kind of noticeable that it's a little squirrelier, where if I sit back just a bit, yeah, it just transfers that weight a little bit further to the back, and it doesn't feel like it wobbles so much. I suppose it could drop the rear just a little bit more. I've got about another inch that I could lower it with the adjustable lowering link that I've got on here, so maybe we'll have to do that even just to get myself a little bit nicer of a spot to sit on the seat. And if this was not the 1-inch low seat like it is, there would be a little bit less of a deep V, which I think would probably make for a little bit more comfortable ride, because I wouldn't be sliding down so much. It'd be kind of just sitting on that little, well, extra inch of foam in the center. This seat could be a little bit softer though. I think that addition of the seat heater sort of made it maybe a little bit firmer than I would like, but I don't know. I mean, I have been on this bike for a long time, and I'm really not in all that much discomfort. I love it when the clouds are like this. I think that's so cool. I don't think I've ever enjoyed a bike nearly as much, both on and off-road, as I do when I'm riding this bike. It isn't nearly as comfortable as the KLR or the DR. The KLR is going to be, I think, more comfortable and feel a bit more like an adventure bike, but I mean, it's pretty hard to beat this for off-road riding. And I really like how kind of tight you can keep your legs to the tank and the bike. It just feels, I don't know, a lot better. Oh no, I missed a road. I have enough fuel to be running all over the place. Oh, there's turkeys out there. This is a nice blind takeoff here. But yeah, as much as this is not a comfy road bike, it definitely is a fun road bike, and I would say a fairly capable road bike. I mean, more than capable enough as, again, an adventure dual sport type bike. Certainly, not on par with any actual adventure bike, but if you're looking for something that weighs, 350-ish pounds, can do a ridiculous amount of stuff off-road, can still run 70 miles an hour fairly comfortably, doable anyways, I guess, with a 14-tooth sprocket. Definitely very comfy. Oh, look at all that ice with the stock 15-tooth. I mean, there is no better option than the XR650L, except for maybe the DR650. Well, that's certainly not what I expected. We got 68 miles on the trip meter since I left this gas station. I suppose I didn't really ride it all that hard, and those trails weren't anything too crazy, so I suppose we conserved a little bit of fuel. Might as well see how far we can get, I guess, before I have flipped the reserve. It's not on reserve, is it? I did flip it back, right? 90 miles! It's gotta be coming soon. About that for the last 20 miles, though. Oh! Nope, not yet, I don't think. Oh, nope, there it is. Right? Oh, yeah. 91, we'll say. Just filled the bike up. On the way back here, we clocked up to 94.9 miles, and it looks like we've got 1.924 gallons. So 94.9 divided by 1.924, 49.32 miles of the gallon. That's a new record. I've never gotten close to 50 miles to the gallon with the XR. That's like DR650 territory. Did I really ride it that much easier today? I guess maybe I did. Well, guys, thanks for riding along with me today. If you enjoyed the adventure, don't be afraid to hit that like button. And if you're not yet subscribed, we'll be doing lots more adventures like this on both the XR and the DR, and maybe even some new bikes this year. Until next time, take care, stay safe, stay swanky, get out there, get out here, and enjoy this beautiful world that God created for yourself. I don't care what kind of bike you got, just get out here and enjoy it. Even if you just got to take a walk, it's worth getting out here, getting some fresh air. I sure feel better. Catch you guys in the next one.